The use of departments in CenterPoint Fund allows you to break down your financial activity by department and to be able to analyze each department separately. The use of departments is available within payroll as well to break down your different labor costs by department. Departments is an optional set of details within CenterPoint. It can be added at any time, even if you initially start using CenterPoint without the use of departments. A department is not assigned to an account, but instead a department can be assigned to each line of any transaction using an account. Throughout the program, you might come across an area of the program that uses the term profit center. Profit center is the equivalent of a department. To set up a new department, I'm going to go to Setup and to Departments and Locations, and then over to Departments. You see here that I have a running list of departments that we already have at this particular municipality. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and add a new department. You have the ability to give it an optional abbreviation. We're using numeric abbreviations for each of our departments. There is a field called the distribution factor. The distribution factor is not currently used for fund activity. So let's go ahead and put in the name of our department. So this new department that we're adding is called Senior Services. Okay, then you have the ability to identify a type for your department. Most of your departments will actually be fund departments since you are in the fund program. So you could select fund, and if most of your departments are going to be fund departments, you could right-click there and set that as a default so that you don't have to select it each time. It'll automatically be filled in, and you can change it when you need to. The default inventory is also an optional part of setting up departments, and for the most part isn't currently used for a CenterPoint Fund product. I can go ahead and click Save, but before I do, I just want to point out that there is a button down here for additional notes. If you wanted to put in additional notes about this department that would be saved with the department setup, you could enter them here. You could also add a timestamp there and then enter in whatever notes you wanted to put in about that department. I'm going to get rid of that timestamp and just click OK there because I don't need to enter any notes for our department. So I'm going to go ahead and click Save. And that is adding a new department. Now, to edit a department is pretty simple. You would come to the same screen, you would highlight the one you want, and you could either click the Edit button or you could double click on the item. And then you are allowed to change any information within this screen. So you can change the name, the abbreviation, and the type, but just keep in mind that by changing it here, it will affect all previously entered in transactions that were tagged to that particular department. Okay, you can also delete a department at any time, but if you go to delete a department that has already been used in transactions, and I go ahead and say yes here, you'll get a message like this saying that it's unable to delete remaining items. So don't worry, the system is going to keep you from deleting something that's previously been used in a transaction. You may need to eventually inactivate it if it's a department that you don't use anymore, and you could do that right on the edit screen. There is the ability to take an active department and take the check mark out, which would make it inactive. I'm going to leave mine active and click Save. Now, as mentioned, I can use those departments on financial statements, so I can go ahead and close out of here. And if I went to Reports and I go ahead and go to my Reports tab and open up financial statements and highlight the statement of revenues and expenditures, I'm going to run this for this year, and no particular fund is going to be selected. Okay, or actually, let me go ahead and select the general fund because that is the fund that I use departments in mostly. So I'm going to select my general fund there. Okay, so if I click Preview, this is my statement of revenues and expenditures for my general fund. And you can see that this statement of revenue expenditures has actually been broken down by different departments. You can see my departments here. I have the administrative department, the general revenues department, the police department. So we've already got that broken down within our regular statement of revenues and expenditures. Okay, so that's detail that you can see. And there's a lot of different ways that you can do this detail. For example, right now I'm seeing underneath revenue each department. But what if I wanted a separate revenue and expenditure statement for each department? I could just move the grouping up a level, or up 2 levels to the top here. So I can go over here and I could actually go to the department and move that grouping up a couple levels. And then what I wind up with is basically a separate statement of revenues and expenditures for each department. So each one would be separate. So I start out with the administrative department, and I'm seeing a complete revenue and expenditure statement for that department. And then it goes on to the fire department, and after each department, then it'll have a break at the bottom. If there's any unallocated revenues and expenditures, we would see them down there. Okay, so our basic statement of revenues and expenditures is already broken down by department. I can also filter reports for specific departments. So when you're highlighted on a report, if you don't see a filter here for a department, you can go to more items, and you can go ahead and say that you want to add the department filter, and it would allow you to filter the report for a specific department. So here I could filter for the fire department, for example, by moving the fire department over to the right. And then when I click preview on the report, it will only be for the fire department. It will not show any other departments out there. I'm going to click close there and click close again. Now I just wanted to show you how departments are used in a transaction. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and enter in a payment transaction for a utility bill. To enter in that transaction, I'm going to go to processes, and I'm going to go to expenditures and payments. I could have also gotten to it from my quick list over here on the left-hand side. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and select my company, my bank account, and then I'm going to come down to the pay to the order of field. I'm going to go ahead and select my electric company, which happens to be Superior Electric, and we're going to go ahead and put in a bill. Oops, this is just giving me a warning that I've already used that number in a transaction, and so yes, I'm going to have it enter in a new number. So we'll go ahead and put in here 987, I think is my next number. So then we're going to go ahead and enter in a utility bill here for $263. Okay, I'm going to come down to the line down here, and I'm going to choose my utilities expense. And that first part of the line is going to be for $129.53 or 63 cents, and that is going to go to the Department of Fire. So in order to go ahead and see the department, if I don't see a column here on the grid for department, I can click on this button here or hit enter on that button, and I could choose the department by going down to the department field and selecting that department. Okay. If you want to have that department field showing on this grid here, then what you need to do is right click on the grid, go to add remove columns. You'll see that the columns that are already visible are those that have check marks in them. The ones that aren't visible are those that don't have check marks in them. So I want to add a column for department, and then I'm going to move it up with these other selected columns by hitting this top button. So now it's up here. And then from there, I can reposition it using the up and the down arrow keys to where I want it to be. Well, I'd like it to be right after the detail button. So I'm going to go ahead and move it there and click OK. So now we can see the department on this grid. So finishing out this transaction becomes a little bit easier. If this utility expense is also partially part of the library's expense, I can go ahead and choose library. And then if it also belongs to that senior services that I just set up, oops, I need to choose the utility expense here. Okay, I can go ahead and set that to senior services. Okay, and that is the way that we would break down each of our transactions by those different departments. So each line could actually have a different department in it. I'm going to go ahead and click save, and that'll go ahead and save that transaction.